I would like to call to order the County of Placer Planning Commission for December the 10th. If everyone would join me, stand and salute and flag salute.
Right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Sue.
Yes, good morning. Mr. Cannon.
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. Moss.
Here.
Mr. Nader.
Here.
Mr. Herzog is absent. Mr. Sevison.
Did you get my yes?
We did now, thank you. And Mr.
Okay,
Hauge.
Sorry,
Here.
I'm further away.
Well, this is going to be interesting today. Wayne, I think we may limit you to 3 minutes today. All right, welcome everyone. It's important for Placer County to conduct our business to ensure essential services for our citizens. We're doing everything we can to facilitate residents staying at home and physical distancing. We encourage the public to engage in the process. With that in mind, our public comment for this meeting will be offered in person and through a remote virtual process. Citizens who wish to comment today that did not call the reservation line prior to the start of this meeting should be prepared to comment via the Zoom platform. To join virtually online, click on the link on the Planning Commission homepage. Please make sure your microphone is muted. You may also call in using our toll-free numbers to hear the meeting at 888-788-0099 or 877-853-5247. And please enter the webinar ID 980-7764-7338. Please press *6 to mute yourself. If you would like to make public comment virtually, please raise your hand with a hand icon at the bottom of the page. If you are calling in, please press *9 to raise your hand. Please be prepared to speak at the time I open public comment for the specific item you would like to address, which may include public comment for matters not included on the agenda, a consent item, or a timed item. If attending in person today, we kindly request that once you have commented on your item, return to your seat or leave the hearing room from the exit-only door to accommodate for physical distancing and allow for others to provide in-person public comment. Each commenter is entitled to 3 minutes of comment time. Thank you for your patience as we work to preserve the safety and health of all meeting participants and to assure that each citizen who wishes to comment has the opportunity to do so. At this time, we would like the director's report.
Nicely done. Good morning, Chairman, members of the Commission, E.J. Valdi with the Planning Services Division. First, I'll cover normal business. So an update on the board meetings that have occurred since our last Planning Commission meeting. On November 17th, the board approved the Placer Vineyards specific plan development agreement term extension. As you remember, your commission recommended to extend that from 2032 to 2050. So that was approved. On that date, we also gave the board an update on the Lakeside redevelopment project that came to your commission before. We informed the board that the applicant is making progress on a hotel plan for that site. There's been several discussions with the utility districts, the fire districts, just on the logistics of doing such a project. And we anticipate a pre-development application hopefully in the next month to come in. So just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that. December 1st, at the board, the single room occupancy zoning text amendment was approved as recommended by your commission. And then this next Tuesday at the board, the Tahoe Basin Area Plan housing related amendments will be considered by the board. For Planning Commission, this is our last meeting of this year. Next meeting is going to be on January 14th. I don't have a list of agenda items yet for that. And then our second meeting in January is the Hidden Falls Regional Park Expansion, CUP modification. That is tentatively scheduled for that date. So it'd be another probably late meeting or 5 o'clock item for that. on January 14th. We'll confirm if that's still going to be the date.
Yeah.
What'd I say?
14.
Sorry, January 28th. But on the 14th, I'll confirm that we're going to be on that date. So anyway, as you know, I mean, this has been probably one of the longest years for most of us. One of my staff members said that 2020 has been the longest decade thus far. Over this year, we've held 17 planning commission meetings, from going to in-person to virtual, back to in-person meetings. So I want to recognize a few folks to help with all the logistics of that. First, Jeremy Kelly, who is just in here once again, trying to get everything to work. I want to thank him and his team for all the logistical planning and setup that went into every meeting as things continually change from in-person to virtual and back. Setting up commissioners remotely, and then adjusting to the ever-changing virtual platforms that we've used. Jeremy is always behind the scenes, but we did have him up just a little while ago trying to get Wayne so he did not sound like Mickey Mouse, which he did. Anyway, so I just want to thank Jeremy and his team for their exhaustive effort in doing that. And then I would be remiss not to acknowledge our administrative team, our Planning Commission clerk, Sue Colbert, Kara Conklin behind me, Sari Hessman is not in the room, but she's probably working behind the scenes as well. This team, which we call our Core 4 team, they've done an outstanding job adjusting to whatever meeting format we had to adjust to, making sure the public had full access to our meetings and making sure commissioners had all the information necessary to partake in these hearings. So a big thank you for this team. This team provided you with 17 planning commission packets this past year. Each of you have reviewed over 60 staff reports, some of those, in the hundreds of pages. Your commission approved new housing projects in West Placer, Granite Bay, and Auburn this year. Your commission also approved one of the first new job creation projects under the Sunset Area Plan, the Placer Vehicle Inspection Center. This year has also been unique in that this pandemic seemed to bring an abundance of appeals to your commission. 9 of them, in fact, where your commission had to sort through the facts and make some difficult decisions. As you know, every couple of years there are planning commission seats that expire, and reappointments and new appointments are made by the Board of Supervisors. That's typically done in January. This is my least favorite time of year, I can tell you that, especially when we've had a planning commission with such a broad base of knowledge and interest in your communities. All of you take this position very seriously. You guys always do your homework. You ask staff the difficult questions, and there's always a good discussion amongst you all. So I just want to thank you all for your public service. Most importantly, thank you for being respectful to the public that we serve and our staff. So thank you.
Thank you. I think as a commission, we also appreciate the work that all the staff has done. I think you forgot to mention how many pounds of documents we reviewed, because I recall there's a few times that I had to come pick it up. They were so heavy. So
that would be a better measurement for sure.
I think this year would have been a good measurement in pounds of documents that we have reviewed. And I also want to thank at this time the Planning Commission, as you noted, a great commission, have done their homework, haven't always agreed, but I think we've been able to discuss why we don't agree on issues, and I think has provided the staff with direction on, how to proceed on a number of items. So I want to thank the rest of the commissioners and especially the staff for putting up with us and getting us through this time. This has been an interesting time, so thank you. All right, at this time, I will open the public comment for any matters that are not on the Planning Commission agenda. First of all, is there anyone within the audience who wants to speak? And if not, Sue, do we have anyone raising their hand? No?
Mr. Chairman,
Let's go ahead.
if it would be appropriate, I wouldn't mind a minute of the commission's time.
There you go.
As EJ said, changes come with the Planning Commission, and I think this year I am one of them. So this will be my last meeting. I just wanted to express my sincere appreciation to county staff and Sue especially, and care for all they've done and taking good care of us and making us, I think, feel special while we're here. It's been an honor and a pleasure to serve with you all for the last 12 years and be part of this. And I just wanted to say thank you, and that's it, I guess.
Thank you, Jeffrey. All right. With no other comments, the public comment for matters not on the agenda is closed. We will now move on to the consent agenda. Would any commissioner like to remove the one item from the consent agenda? And does anyone from the public want to remove an item from the consent agenda? So first of all, commissioners, anyone want to remove the minutes? No? And anyone in the audience? See no one. And then Sue, anyone raising their hand?
No.
All right. So I would accept the motion.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second to approve the consent agenda. Roll call, please.
I have a first by
I'll
Mr.
second, Commissioner.
Oh, actually, Sam, Jeff made the second, so we're clear.
Are we running on a delay again?
Yeah, we are.
We have a first by Mr. Johnson, a second by Mr. Moss. So a vote from Mr. Cannon, please.
Yes.
Yeah, there is a delay.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Nader,
Yeah.
Mr. Sevison,
Uh-oh.
Yes.
thank you, and Mr. Hauge.
Yes.
Thank you.
Got it.
So if everyone knows, we are getting a delay, so we will try to deal with that delay as we move forward today. Sam, for some reason, your signal is delayed by about 30 seconds or so. All right. We are moving on to our first timed item, which is a Riolo Vineyard Specific Plan Mansion Trails Rezone, or Mason Trails Rezone, Development Agreement, Administrative Modification, Investing Tentative Subdivision Map. Members of the public may now raise their hands or press *9 on your phone to begin queuing in for public comment on this item, which will not begin until the item presentation is complete. Nick Trefero Senior Planner, will be presenting this item. Nick?
Good morning. Division. The item I have before you today is the Mason Trails Subdivision, which is a project under Riolo Vineyard Specific Plan. The Planning Commission is being asked for its recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to approve a rezone, development agreement, administrative modification, and tentative subdivision map for the project. So just want to start by giving you an overview of the Riolo Vineyard Specific Plan. The specific plan area is located in the southwestern portion of Placer County within the Dry Creek West Placer Community Plan Area. Here's the vicinity and aerial map that specifically shows the location of Mason Trails property in relation to Dry Creek Community Plan Area. And here's an aerial of the entire specific plan area showing its location north of PFE Road between Watt Avenue and Willerga, and Dry Creek forms the northern boundary. This aerial also shows you Mason Trails property, which is located on the eastern portion of the specific plan area. So the specific plan area covers a total of 525 acres with the ultimate development of 933 dwelling units over various phases. Includes residential, open space, and recreational uses, as well as agricultural and commercial components. There are three major phases of the specific plan that will develop in the east to west direction. Phase 1 is Mariposa, Phase 2 Glen Willow, and Phase 3 Silver Sage. Other phases include Phase Y, which is the Mason Trails subdivision shown on this map. So the specific plan was approved back in 2009, subsequently amended in 2015 to address land use and zoning modifications. Since 2009, there's been 2 of the subdivisions that were approved by your Planning Commission are now under construction. Mariposa was approved by your commission in 2010, is now under construction for 107 single-family residential lots. And Glen Willow was approved in 2018. Grading just began this last summer for construction of 177 single-family residential lots. The specific plan also went through a comprehensive environmental review process, which included certifying an EIR and an addendum later to address the specific plan amendment. There's 3 master plans that were prepared for water, sewer, and drainage. So as mentioned earlier, there's 3 entitlements associated with Mason Trails. The first one being the rezone. So when the specific plan was approved originally, the rezone was completed for several of the parcels that were under one ownership, being Homes by Town. And those properties were rezoned to specific plan SPL-RVSP. At the time, the other remaining parcels, which were under different ownership, such as Mason Trails, retained their current zoning. Mason Trails property is currently zoned residential single family, combining agriculture, combining a minimum building site of 20,000 square feet, development reserve, planned residential development with a maximum of 2 residences per acre. So as part of this process, the site will be rezoned to SPL-RVSP as well. So the second entitlement request is for the administrative modification, and that would be to change the land use designation for the northern portion of the subdivision to open space, since this was originally designated for residential land use in the specific plan. The modification also addresses retaining the existing pond, which the approved specific plan indicated would be filled, and the pond would actually be used for open space and stormwater drainage purposes. In addition, the park site would increase from 1.9 to 2.8 acres. And note that with this change, actually, the same number of residential lots are proposed. That would be the 170 lots. So here's the tentative map for the subdivision. The property encompasses approximately 78.4 acres. As I mentioned, they propose 170 low-density residential lots, ranging in size from 7,400 to 21,000 square feet. On-site amenities include the park expansion to the Glen Willow Park, approximately 21 acres of open space, located between the residential development and Dry Creek, an interior landscape corridor with a pedestrian pathway. And this map just gives you a little bit more detail of the location of the residential open space and park uses. Here's a better look at the park expansion to the 2.8 acres that would extend from the Glen Willow Park. And this will include an athletic field and additional parking. So direct access to the subdivision will be provided by the main entry to the adjacent Glen Willow subdivision. This entry may be previously constructed with the Glen Willow subdivision. If not, a segment of entry will be constructed as an off-site improvement to connect to K Street in the Mason Trails subdivision. Access points would also be provided from interior roadways, A Street and Tiller Way on the west side, and Tiller Way I and M Streets on the east side connecting to the Mariposa development. I just also want to note there's off-site improvements that will be performed. So when Glen Willow was approved, Lot C, which is the green sliver of land you see there between Mason Trails and Glen Willow, wasn't identified for landscaping. Since it serves as a transition area, this area will be landscaped and an 8-foot wide trail will be installed as an off-site improvement. This slide just provides you a little bit better detailed view of the bike paths and trails throughout, the landscape corridors, interior pedestrian path through the center of the subdivision, and the open space lot around the pond area. And here's the fencing plan. This shows you the different types of fencing proposed. Excuse me. I have to get some water. Sorry. Since the Mason Trail subdivision is within the specific plan area, a DA was required to be prepared between the county and the applicant, Gen California 8. Key highlights include upon property acquisition, the 20-year term goes into effect. The developer is also required to pay certain fees. And then there's also timeline set for the affordable housing as well. And these are the other key highlights. PFE road and intersection improvements, and for parks and trail construction. So an environmental checklist was prepared for Mason Trails. No change conditions were identified. The project is considered exempt from CEQA since it's consistent with the previous EIR. And in terms of public outreach, it was presented as an informational action item to the MAC on May 8, 2019, and as an action item on November 13th of 2019. At both meetings, no concerns were raised, and the MAC unanimously approved the motion to recommend approval by a vote 4-0. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does the commission have any questions of Nick? Doesn't look that way. So at this point in time, is the applicant in the audience or online to make a presentation? Is it?
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, Anton Garcia, Director of Forward Planning. Thought my video would be on, but that's okay. Director of Forward Planning for Taylor Builders, the applicant. Want to thank Nick and the rest of staff for their support and guidance through the last year and a half on this project, not only on Mason Trails, but our other holdings within the specific plan. With me via Zoom is my team, Clifton Taylor, the president of the company, Gene Endicott, our public relations consultant, Curtis King with King Engineering, and Steve Greenfield with Cunningham, the planner, Cunningham Engineering, who's our planner, and Chad Roberts, our counsel. I did provide a PowerPoint to Cedra, and I was hoping that I could walk through those slides to supplement what Nick had provided through his presentation.
The PowerPoint is up for you to.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So Mason Trails, as Nick pointed out, we can go on to the next slide. As part of the Real Bigger Specific Plan, before we dive into the project, I did want to speak a little bit about our company and what we do. We are headquartered here in Roseville, California. We were formed in 2017 by Mr. Taylor. Our primary focus is to invest, entitle, and develop primarily residential real estate throughout Northern California and Northern Nevada. our position is to take large projects like this and master plan communities that require a multitude of infrastructure obligations and permitting, and through our builder relationships with both private and public builders, deliver them finished lots where essentially they go pull a building permit and go vertical. So we're on the front end and taking on these large obligations to facilitate that development. Our company, Mr. Taylor, has over 2 decades of asset management and development experience, plenty of in Placer County and within the region. And our company is funded by a private equity group called Gen Partners. Gen is a leading equity group based in New York that, through their investment relationships with investors, provide funding through their partnerships throughout the region, here being Taylor Builders, to facilitate public infrastructure, and through those relationships with public and private home builders, deliver finished lots. Next slide, please. As outlined by Mr. Trevero, the Mason Trails makes up roughly 77 of the acres of the specific plan. Before we really dive into Mason Trails, I do want to point out, not including this project, our company owns and controls 567 single-family lots within the specific plan, all of them to the west of Mason Trails. If you include Mason Trails, that makes up 737 single-family lots. That puts us in a position as the master developer. Glen Willows, which is a project that Mr. Trevero noted as under development, really brings in a lot of the backbone infrastructure. The majority, we're almost within a couple months of being completed with a significant super lift station that not only serves this project, but Placer Vineyards. We also, as part of that Glen Willow project, obviously, as you can see, the part that will be constructed, the Class 1 trails from Willarga to Watt and the PFE Willarga intersection. I did want to note that, as Mr. Trevero pointed out, there is already an amended and restated development agreement that captures Glen Willow and another project to the west called Silver Sage. With respect to Glen Willow and Mason Trails, you will see in the development agreement that's in front of you today with Mason, a lot of the obligations with respect to public infrastructure reflect what's in Glen Willows. So essentially, if Glen Willow didn't move forward, there will be requirements to build and construct the PFE Willarga intersection. I could tell you we've already put a lot of effort into that. We've had great working progress with SMUD on relocation of 69 kV lines, not only along our frontage, but PFE Willarga. So that component is well ahead of Mason Trails ever triggering that building permit count, as we feel that Glen Willow is going to be delivered public infrastructure by late 2021. And then with respect to now getting more into Mason Trails, as Mr. Trevero noted, it's an important component because it provides now a clear route from the Mariposa project, which was developed in 2016 by Homes by Town, that provides homeowners now an ability to access PFE Road without having to go down Willarga. Additionally, that road will provide a sidewalks and pedestrian ability for homeowners from Mariposa and obviously Mason Trails to access the community parks and Class 1 trails and the amenities with the wetland preserves and the open space. As Mr. Trevero also pointed out, there is the Lot Z, which is an offsite improvement that is being constructed with Glen Willow. Mason Trails will be the one who be responsible for landscaping that. And it will be maintained by an HOA. Given our position as master developer and exceeding 500 units, we do receive master plan through the Davis-Singer Common Interest Act through the Department of Real Estate for a master plan HOA designation that allows us to work more flexibility and allows us to have more control over the project over the next few years to make certain that we preserve what the characteristics that we feel are reflected in the specific plan in West Placer. Additional to that landscaping, there's a 30-foot paseo that stretches nearly 1,400 linear feet that goes from really the most southerly road near PFE Road up to the open space on the north end. This is above and beyond what would be required of us with respect to any quimby or park dedications or open space dedications, but we felt that it would be a great opportunity to soften up the hardscape where you would have pedestrians being able to utilize that and minimizing the amount of times they have to cross a road. It's something that would be maintained by the HOA, but it would be open to public access. So the folks in Mariposa, obviously Mason Trails, and anyone utilizing that Class 1 trail on the north end would be able to utilize that. And it's just a great complement, I think, to the overall master plan, the overall Class 1 trails that you see here in West Placer. Additionally, there is a pond on, as you can see, towards the northeast. That was originally programmed to be filled in. It is a man-made pond, but after thinking about it some more, we felt it would be a great opportunity and a great complement to the open space and the characteristics. So through, there's some on-site wells that can provide water to it, and we also, it will be used as a treatment facility. Water through riprap, storm drain flows through, will be treated as before they are discharged there, maintained by the HOA with a DG path that runs along the east end of it. With respect to the administrative modification, Mr. Trefiro already pointed out, the open space, really what we're trying to do is just formalize the open space on the northern third of the project. Much of that is within a floodplain, and we've got a master clomar, and we're working with the county's flood management district on all the things needed to make certain that these lots are already outside of that, but making certain that we cross all our T's and dot our I's. Additionally, the lot sizes range on average from 8,000 to 12,000 square feet. They do get the smallest one's about 7,500, largest one's about a little over 20,000. There is a density bonus out there that the previous master developer does possess that we could have utilized that the program ER did cover, but after thinking about it and considering, what we're trying to accomplish out here and looking at the objectives and the goals of the specific plan, we felt 170, which was what was programmed for the specific plan, would be superior. And these lot sizes are going to be a great complement and provide diversification with the product types in a specific plan and West Placer. So they're larger than what you're seeing in Glen Willow, aside from the 11 estate lots. They're larger than what you're seeing in Mariposa. And really it provides an array of product types that so that more consumers have the ability to provide ownership to. As previously mentioned, many of the development agreement obligations with respect to offsite improvements are covered with Glen Willow, but we are progressing on those, and our plan is to develop this project in 2021, and with many of those infrastructure already in place. Next slide, please. This covers much of what I've already provided, 77 acres, 170 homes. Really is going to target entry level and move ups. It expands the park, as mentioned for Mr. Trefiro. The field was originally supposed to be a soccer field, but we were able to implement more space to accommodate for a lacrosse field, which is, in my understanding, is a little larger. So it's a little larger than I think what was programmed, but we feel once again it'd be a great complement and supplement the future community park, and includes 17, as mentioned, 17 acres of permanent open space on the northern end. Next slide, please. Here's just a copy of the tentative map. Very nitty gritty and a lot of detail. I'm certain I believe in the staff report. Speaks to the sheds where sewer flows, storm drain, water, where it comes from. The water main has already been constructed along PFE Road. It was needed as part of the sewer lift station on Glen Willow. And much of the utilities, obviously from Mariposa, are stubbed. And with Glenville developing to the west, you will see a lot of. It's one of the great benefits of these master plan communities to, provide a very efficient manner and to bring utilities on. Next slide, please. Our plan is to develop the entire 170 lots, all the infrastructure at one time, but we have to be thoughtful about in the event we have to phase it. So we worked with staff diligently to come up with a phasing plan that would meet all of the land development standards and manuals that have been adopted by Placer County. On the north end, because the sewer dust gravity from that area, that's where you would have your phase one. We would have to construct all of the access points to the west that go along that spine road from PFE Road to the future park. But once again, our goal and objective is to develop all this in one time. Next slide. Well, that's everything. You got my email and my phone number. Last thing I did want to note is affordable housing. It's in the development agreement under section 2.6 that we do need to enter into an affordable housing agreement to address the low and the very low component. Our team is working diligently on that, and that needs to happen before the first final map can record. So over the next 3-4 months, you will see. I think it goes to the board, an agreement coming to see forward to the county on how we're going to address that. The 2% moderate can be done on site, whether on Mason Trails or any of our other holdings within the specific plan. Our goal is to bring builders in and provide an ADU on these homes that don't exceed 750 square feet. And we feel it's a great opportunity to bring on a product that by design and having the ability to have, whether it's anybody who needs to move in, many times kids, go off to college, they come back, it can always be for rent. The ability to provide a non-deed restricted ADU so that we can continue to, supply and complement the housing that the region needs. As mentioned, I'm open here for any questions and comments. If I can't answer them, I'm certain somebody on my team can, and we will patiently wait through your deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Are there questions of the commission of the applicant? Seeing none, do we have any comments or questions from the public? Any in the audience? No? Any online? All right. With that, we're going to then close the public comment period. I should have said we opened it. Now we're closing it, given there's no comment. I don't think there's any need for the staff to respond, so let's bring
Chair,
it back.
if I could, I'd like to just mention one thing.
All right.
The attachment C in the staff packet, which is the ordinance for the development agreement, that's on page 23 and 24 of the packet. I think there was an inadvertent omission of part of the ordinance. There should be, on page 24, there should be a section 2 after section 1. And if I could just read in what the proposed language for that section 2 would be. And this would be part of the, all of the packet that staff would be recommending.
All right, thank you.
So section 2 should state, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect upon acquisition of the subject property by Gen California 8 LLC and full execution of the development agreement by the property owner, which in no event shall occur less than 30 days after its passage. Period. The clerk is directed to publish a summary of the ordinance within 15 days in accordance with Government Code Section 25124, period. And that, I think, was just inadvertently cut off.
All right, thank you.
So,
Yes, we're bringing it back to the commission then for comments and discussion.
just a quick question based on that modification, where in the motion would you like to hear as modified?
Sure. So there should be a item in the motion for approval of the ordinance for the development agreement. So just indicate on that one that it should be as modified.
Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion on the part of the commission? Seeing none, I'll open it up for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that the Planning Commission take action to recommend the following to the Board of Supervisors based on the findings contained in the RVSP Mason Trails Staff Report dated November 30th, 2020, that we determined that the proposed project consisting of the rezone, the administrative modification, the vesting tentative subdivision map, and the development agreement is exempt from CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15182 and 15183 on the basis that it is consistent with the previously adopted RVSP FEIR, the 2012 addendum to the FEIR, and the 2015 addendum to the FEIR, and the amended 2015 Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program.
Second. We have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
I have a first by Mr. Moss, a second by Mr. Johnson, so a vote for Mr. Cannon, please.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yeah.
Mr. Sevison?
You're muted, Larry.
Yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Hauge?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would further move that we adopt, or we recommend the board adopt an ordinance to rezone the Mason Trails project site as shown in attachment B to the staff report.
I don't want it muted.
You want to hear everything you say? Yeah.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please, Sue.
I have a first from Mr. Moss, a second from Mr. Johnson, so a vote for Mr. Cannon, please.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yeah.
Mr. Sevison?
Yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Hauge?
Yes.
Thank you.
Would further move, we recommend the board adopt an ordinance approving the development agreement by and between the County of Placer and Gen California 8 LLC as modified, or LLC, a California Limited Liability Corporation, as modified relative to the Riolo Vineyard Specific Plan Mason Trail Subdivision.
Second. We have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
A first from Mr. Moss, a second from Mr. Johnson, so vote for Mr. Cannon, please.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yeah.
Mr. Sevison?
Larry, you're on mute. You may maybe just want to turn yours off mute for a while.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hauge?
Yes.
Thank you.
I had it that way.
Yeah, just, yeah.
Would further move that we recommend approval, that the board approve the Riolo Vineyards Mason Trails property administrative modification to change the land use designation for the Lot H area and Lot F from LDR to OS. Increase the park site, Lot E, from 1.9 to 2.8 acres, and retain the existing pond, which the approved RVSP indicated would be filled.
We have a second. Second. We have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
I have a first by Mr. Moss, a second by Mr. Johnson, so a vote for Mr. Cannon, please.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yeah.
Mr. Sevison?
Keeping us all in suspense here.
What's that?
I said keeping us in suspense.
I know.
Yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Hauge?
Yes.
Thank you.
I would further move, we recommend the board approve the Mason Trails vesting tentative subdivision map that will create 178 lots, including 170 low-density residential lots, one neighborhood park lot, 2.8 acre expansion of Park 3 in the Glen Willow subdivision, 2 open space lots, 20.9 acres, and 5 landscape corridor lots, 2.4 acres, within the previously approved Riolo Vineyard specific plan area, subject to the conditions of approval found in attachment G to the staff report.
Second. We have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
I have a first from Mr. Moss, a second from Mr. Johnson. So vote for Mr. Cannon, please.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Nader? I think that was a yes.
I think I heard a yes.
Yep.
And Mr. Sevison?
Yeah.
Yes.
And Mr. Hauge?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is screwed up, Mom.
You did.
We did it. That item has been approved. I believe the next item, the Skorstad Folsom Lake Estates, has been requested to be delayed. Is that correct? Mr.
That's
Bowman?
correct. The item number 2, Skorstad, Folsom Lake Estates, 2A, Lot 25, conditional use permit modification is asking for a continuance off calendar.
All right.
So do we need to do that with a motion?
Yes.
Oh, we do. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we postpone this item to a date non-specific.
Do we have a second? Second. We have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
I have a first from Mr. Moss, a second from Mr. Johnson. So a vote for Mr. Cannon, please.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Sevison?
Yes.
And Mr. Hauge?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next time the item is a CSOK Granite Bay Minor Land Division Conditional Use Permit and Design Review. Members of the public may now raise their hands or press star 9 if you're calling to begin queuing in for public comment on this item, which will not begin until the item presentation is complete. Amy Rosig, Associate Planner, will be presenting the item. Here, it's yours, Amy.
Did I go too far? Sorry. Oh. Sorry about that. There we go.
Good.
So good morning, Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Amy Rossig with the Planning Services Division. The item that I have before you this morning is a conditional use permit, a minor land division, and a design review agreement. It is for a project that we call CSOC Granite Bay, but CSOC stands for Cellular Sales of Knoxville, but we just call it CSOC for short. Project site is located at 8595 Auburn Folsom Road. This is located just south of Douglas Boulevard and on the east side of Auburn Folsom Road. This shopping center is called the Granite Bay Village Shopping Center. It's got an Ace Hardware, there's a Dutch Brothers, there's also 2 local restaurants, one's called Susie's and another one's called Dominic's, and those are all located in the shopping center. For reference, the Rayleigh's is located in the northeast corner of this area. This property is pretty much surrounded by commercial uses. The project site is zoned commercial plan development with a combining design scenic corridor. To the south are properties that are under the same zoning district. Those are also a shopping center. To the west is office and professional zoning, and those are used as office spaces right now. To the north, you have your local neighborhood zoning district, and then to the east is multifamily residential. So one of the entitlements that's before you this morning is for a minor land division. This is to divide a 11.16 acre parcel into 2 parcels. One parcel would be 0.59 acres in size, and the remaining Parcel 2 would be 10.587 acres in size. Parcel 2 would retain the existing shopping center, and then Parcel 1 is where the further development would occur. So the applicant is proposing to construct a 3,000 square foot retail building. This building is intended to be used by Verizon. They would employ approximately 10 to 12 employees, but the number of employees would rotate varying based on their shifts. The hours of operation are your normal retail business hours, and they would be open 7 days a week. To support this retail building, they will be constructing 27 parking spaces. There's going to be 11 parking spaces parallel to Auburn Folsom Road, just directly adjacent to Susie's Restaurant. And then there would be 16 parking spaces which would be located within the boundaries of the tentative parcel map. So 5 of the parking spaces would be located within the front of the building, and then the remaining parking spaces would be located to the east of the building. And they've broken down this parking into smaller units, which is consistent with the Granite Bay Community Plan, which states that they would like to see parking broken down into units and supported with landscaping and pedestrian walkways. So on that note, I'd like to show you the landscaping plan that the applicant has prepared. As you can see, there's going to be landscaping along the perimeter of the parking, to the east, and then there's going to be landscaping along the south, around the building, and then parallel to Auburn Folsom Road in those 11 parking spots. The applicant is also proposing 5 trees along those 11 parking spaces parallel to Auburn Folsom Road, and that's to meet our shade requirements that we have. They're also proposing a trash area. Oops, I just hit the wrong button. So they're proposing a trash area, and this area would also be landscaped. They're proposing a 10-foot wide landscaping bed to the east, and that exceeds the requirement established by the Granite Bay Community Plan, which requires all landscaping beds to be at least 5 feet wide. They're also proposing a pedestrian walkway, which would connect this building and Susie's Restaurant to the greater shopping center. And then in addition, they're also proposing a rockery wall, which would be a retaining wall. And this is going to be located also parallel to Auburn Folsom Road for those parking spaces that are there. So the building elevation itself, I have included some pictures here. The Granite Bay Community Plan talks about the design elements of craftsman style, but also talks about how they are looking for not like a strict craftsman style. So the building that's proposed is to complement the existing shopping center. We have molding along the columns of the building, which mimic and complement the columns of the existing shopping center. We have the molding that's going to be painted the same color as the shopping center that's existing, with some additional detailing on the columns. There's going to be metal canopies over the windows and the doorways, and those canopies will be metal construction to match the metal roofing on the existing shopping center. And the building would also be painted like a brown and neutral color, which is consistent with the Granite Bay Community Plan, which calls for neutral colors, and the usage of primary colors is discouraged. So before I get to the recommendation for staff, I would like to say that I have issued an errata for condition of approval number 40. This condition is regarding the private sewer line that is located throughout the shopping center. The nature of this condition has remained the same with these changes. We are just adding a sentence at the end that says, should Placer County determine necessary, the owner shall work with the county to include a statement regarding the private sewer system on the final map. So with all that said, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission approve the proposed project and find the project categorically exempt from CEQA, and approve the tentative parcel map, conditional use permit, and design review agreement based on the conditions and the findings contained in the staff report and the errata that has been issued.
Thank you. So at this time,
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, could you go back to the map on where this is located?
Absolutely.
Now that map shows the whole shopping center.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the parcel located?
It would be located, this is Susie's right here, so it would be located adjacent to it in this area.
Okay, now this is the shopping center with Rayleigh's in it?
No, Rayleigh's is located on the northeast corner.
Same shopping center though?
It's a different shopping center.
Okay.
In this shopping center, there's an Ace Hardware, there's a Dutch Brothers. The Dutch Brothers is the most recent addition to the shopping center, and that's located over here.
Okay. The map, there's a bank of buildings that are mostly vacant on the Auburn Folsom Road side. And I guess this map doesn't show that, right? Or those are new? I guess the reason I'm asking is I went down there to look at it, and I couldn't find this parcel.
Okay.
In fact, I wondered if I was in the right shopping center, except for it's the corner of Auburn, Folsom, and Douglas. So
Right, and that it is the opposite direction of the Rayleigh Shopping Center.
okay, and there's a couple banks of buildings there that are mostly vacant, and so where in relationship to those is this parcel located?
It's the parking lot for Susie's Restaurant, where Susie's Restaurant is.
That's on the corner?
The parking lot in front of that is a majority of what this parcel will be.
Okay.
So it's already paved and parking lot right now. You wouldn't see it as an empty parcel.
Oh, okay.
That's correct.
So I drove all around and I was
Yeah.
puzzled. Just
Right
totally
now, it
puzzled.
is just a parking lot, so you have to visualize it. And here's maybe a better image, is we have Susie's right here. Dominic's Italian Market is located right here, and then this is the parking lot right now where it would be going. And then there's like entrance into the shopping center, which is located here, and that would remain in place. So we're just utilizing this existing pavement.
Well, where are all the buildings that back up to Auburn Folsom Road? They're not on this map?
I know the remaining part of the shopping center is located, not shown on this map here. I know there's like a gas station over here on this part.
Yeah, on
Not
this
sure.
parcel, Commissioner Johnson, there's no buildings that back up to Auburn Folsom Road.
Thank you.
Well, I didn't hear that.
So on this parcel, on the southeast parcel, there are no buildings that actually back up to Auburn Folsom Road. The only buildings that are there front Auburn Folsom. You have the Dutch Brothers. There's a post office building to the south on that parcel. So I'm thinking you might be referring to where the Rayleigh Center is, where you actually, on the Rayleigh Center, you do have buildings that back up on Auburn Folsom Road, but that's north of Douglas Boulevard. That's not the parcel that's in question.
North
right
of
now.
Douglas?
Yeah, can you point that
Yes.
out?
So the Rayleigh Shopping Center is here.
Yeah, so
I guess
those buildings right there along that Auburn Folsom, those back up to Auburn Folsom.
Okay, now I'm confused because it's okay, maybe I'm not going to get rid of my confusion, but I pulled in to this Rayleigh Shopping Center, and I just couldn't find this parcel. That's okay.
You were in
I'll
the
take
wrong
your
spot.
word for it. Usually I'm pretty good with maps, but for some reason I drove all around the shopping center, couldn't find it.
And I know that it gets a little confusing too with the exhibits. That's why I tried to include north arrows too on there. Since in this image in particular, Douglas Boulevard's located to the left and out of shot of this picture.
All right.
Jeff, did you have?
I did. Could you go back to the site plan that shows the new parking lot and what have you?
Mm-hmm.
I know this is kind of getting down into minor detail, but my understanding these days is trash enclosures have to have room for more. You have to have a cardboard collection and a food waste collection and a garbage can. And the standard one container enclosure is no longer adequate. And so if they make that large enough, the question is, and obviously you would lose some parking. Is that going to be an issue?
I can let the applicant discuss if they've
Okay.
discussed with the trash collection company. I know that's one of the conditions of approval is they have to provide a will serve letter from the trash reciprocal company agreeing that they can access this and this area.
Any other questions of the staff from the commission? Okay. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
So at this time, is the applicant prepared to make a presentation or comment?
Yes, she has a PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, okay. Another one.
She's in here in person.
Good morning.
Good morning. Are we good?
I think we're on, yes.
All right, well, good morning. My name is Brittany Elliott. I'm with Hawkins Companies, 4700 South McClintock Drive, Suite 160, Tempe, Arizona, 85282. And I'm here today to request approval of application PLN 20-00233 for that conditional use permit, design review, and minor land division. Next slide, please. Not moving. Oop, there we go. Well, first of all, I'd like to start off by saying thank you so much to Amy and the entire staff here. You guys have worked tirelessly for answering our questions for the last, I don't know, about year and a half now. So we just want to say thank you. We would not be here today without all of your help. This has been a fantastic project. We've really enjoyed working with you guys. So right here, you can see a little bit in that vicinity map. This might clear up a little bit of confusion. We are right there on the east side of Auburn Folsom Road, just a little south of Douglas Boulevard. The address is actually just assigned, but it did not make it into the PowerPoint presentation. As Amy said, it's about 0.59 acres out of the overall parcel, and we are the applicant. Next slide, please. Oh, there we go, it's better. As Amy said, that this project is zoned for commercial, and that designation, a 3,000 square foot retail building, is an approved use, and that is what we are proposing here. So this project also does support the general plan for Granite Bay. It provides a critical service for residents and also concentrates new building in an existing shopping center to intensify development, which is part of the general plan. Also supports the Granite Bay community plan. It minimizes disturbances of new sites by locating in an existing shopping center that will provide a mix of uses. While this project does have a conditional use permit, we are well below the maximum building height that's allowed under this designation, and we've actually exceeded the required number of parking stalls. Right here is the site plan that you've already seen before. The building itself does sit right there on the corner of the kind of right south of the Susie's, and also just a little bit east on an existing parking center. We're not disturbing any new ground to build this. We're located on that existing piece of pavement. We're adding some parking right there on the east side of west side of Susie's as well. And we're just really reconfiguring that lot. We're actually net positive on the parking by, I believe, 3 parking spots when this is all said and done. We've also included one thing that's a little bit different, which is a bike rack, which you can see right here. We also have some pedestrian connectivity here, here, and here, which will bring that building really into that shopping center and provide a way for people to move around easily. For the trash enclosure itself, I know there were some questions about that. We do have a will serve letter from Recology. Elevations, as Amy pointed out, this building does have that craftsman style feel. It has 4-sided architecture, which means that all of the sides of the buildings have movement, relief. There are variations within them. There's no large blank walls. On this top slide, you'll see the west elevation. That'll be the one facing Auburn Folsom. East will face into the shopping center. And also the same with the north and the south. right here, you'll see that those reveals actually do match what is on the existing shops building directly to the east. Those little parapet caps that we have here, those are also part of that craftsman style look. The canopies themselves that are over the door are also a nod to the sloping of the canopies that are on that shops building. Our colors and materials have been specifically chosen for Granite Bay to make sure that we have that neutral color palette. And with that, I'd like to request your approval for conditional use, or for the conditional use permit, minor land division and design review for PLN 20-00233. And I will stand for any questions you have. I will be taking the easy ones, and I have Chris here with our civil engineer. He will answer all of your hard questions.
All right, thank you. For the commission, are there any questions of the applicant? Right, seeing no questions of the applicant, let's open up for public comment. Are there any individuals in the audience who want to comment? And please.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Andy Moran. I am the owner of Susie's Country Oaks Cafe along with my brother. So we opened up that place in 2004 and turned that building, which some of you remember was a bank, into a restaurant. And I've enjoyed 16 years there to date. As you could imagine, you know, when we initially started hearing rumors that this might occur, made us very nervous. When a restaurant has a potential to lose parking and visibility, that's a major issue. So looking at the plan, I saw some mock-ups from Ethan Conrad early in this process that gave me a lot more fear than this proposal does. But I do have a couple questions and maybe a suggestion or two. Can I get the site map up there? Is there somebody that can cycle through that? Or
Amy?
There we go.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess so I'm going to start with parking and then go to visibility. So on the parking end of things, and as was conveyed, after construction we end up about parking neutral compared to the parking around our pad right now. During construction, I have a concern about that. I was talking to Brittany a little bit. Sounds like their construction process is pretty quick, and you know, I'm comfortable we'll be able to work with them. My suggestion is related to parking, two things. The dumpster is an interesting issue, and I'm kind of glad you brought that up. I think adding a dumpster to the center is really not needed. There are dumpsters all around this center. And I would just recommend that, I know this turns into a separate parcel, but just participating in a small way with a, support with the center's triple net or common area maintenance charges. The dumpster we use from our restaurant, which is the separate pad building that you see there on the site plan, is actually in back of the building to the east, so on the top of that picture. So it's really out of sight. It's in a good location. There is cardboard recycling there as well. So I appreciate the point, Jeffrey, as far as, you know, I think that might be an improvement, is to not add a dumpster to this location, but just utilize what's in existence. I imagine the waste stream for a Verizon store is not that great. I'll go over there and get their garbage for them and take it to the dumpster if that helps process. But I think if that could be considered, you could actually even add a parking space or two there. So my other suggestion related to parking, and sorry for the time issue here, is there also the ability to add the parking that's to the west of our building, to add a few more spaces to the north there. It would be very easy to do, and again, help the parking issue. My last thing related to visibility, we put signs on the building related to what it is now, not what it's going to be. So, I would need to probably add a sign to the west of our building, which we have an older one on the building now, and I know that's probably something I can work with planning on related to, maybe a sign variance or something. But the last thing, and the thing that I heard, and I appreciate trees and landscaping, but why are the trees going in front of my building and not in front of the Verizon building? Again, a visibility issue. I'm happy to find places for 5 trees somewhere, but again, to put this building, which disturbs kind of the view from the south, and then to put trees in front on the view from the west, is really starting to, handicap some of the advantage that we have as this separate pad in the center. So again, sorry for the length of time there, but if those could be considered, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Are there other comments online? We have another comment here.
Good morning, Sandy Harris. I'm not opposed to this project, but circulation in that area is really bad. If you're wanting to come off Auburn Folsom and turn left into that little road that runs along parallel with this new building, it's usually backed up with Dutch Brothers Coffee people, and they've worked and worked to try to keep it flowing through there. But I rarely use that entrance to get into that center, and I go there a lot. Ace is there, the post office, my bank's on the corner, Dominic's. And there's just a little narrow road that you can come in off Douglas and go in between all those buildings. So traffic is really a problem, and I would suggest that you make it a no left-hand turn coming out of there onto Douglas, because Douglas is quite a number of lanes across there, and there's a service station on the corner, so people that are going north on Auburn Folsom, they want to get into that right lane to turn into the service station, and you have people coming out of there. It's a mess. I have a scanner, and I hear accidents in that area several times a month. I'm also curious about Verizon. I know at one time they were located near the Safeway in Roseville on Sierra College, moved up on Douglas near the Target Center. And are they going to move into this new building now, or is this a whole separate Verizon coming into our community?
We'll have the applicant talk about that after.
Yeah, I'm just curious, because if they move around that much and they're building a 3,000 square foot building, in a few years are they going to leave there? And then we have so many vacancies in that shopping center and in the Rayleigh's shopping center. A new company bought the Rayleigh's area about a year ago, and then we've gone into this big lockdown, and so they've gotten nowhere with trying to fill those places up. And there are just a lot of vacancies in that whole area. So I'm questioning whether we need another whole new building, even though I'm sure that this project was allowing that pad's been there forever, and it was to be developed at some time. But anyway, those are some of my questions. But then another comment I wanted to make was to thank Mr. Moss for all his service. I know being a planning commissioner is a lot of work, because I get a lot of this stuff to go through, and I don't even get noticed for it. But anyway, thank you for your work, and we don't always agree on things, but we can always have a civil conversation. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other comments in the audience? Sue, anyone raise their hand? No. Okay, if not, then we will close the public hearing. And could we have either Brittany or Amy come back and answer some of the questions? And EJ probably answer the question on signage for the restaurant. My guess that hasn't anything to do with here, but it probably has something to do with coming to your department.
Yeah, and just so I make sure I understand, the concern was that there could be landscaping that's installed that may take away some of the visibility of the restaurant and signage. So as far as the question, could you get a variance for different signage or things like that? That's obviously a process to go through, and there's no guarantee of that. I think we can work with on the design site review of this plan, and as the commission suggests, we can make changes. That might be something we talk about. There's several actions that we're asking you to take action on today. The design review is typically done at an administrative level, and you could defer that back. One option is defer that back to staff for us to handle that administratively and make any suggested changes of your commission. Or you could take action on the design review with suggestions that we include in that before we do final sign off. I don't know if council has a preference, but I think either one should work.
Okay, thank you. All right, Brittany.
Commissioner and Chairman, thank you so much for allowing me to come back up here to address some of these comments. We're really excited to be here and work with our local community, so it is good to be here. So first of all, for the landscaping, we heard the concern about the additional trees that were being put in front of Susie's. We do have some shading requirements that we are required to make with landscaping and parking. Right now, we do exceed the shade requirement by, I believe, just a few percentages points right there. You'll notice that the existing trees in front of the Verizon are going to remain, and we also have put them throughout our parking lot as required. And then these right here are where the new trees will go. We're not anticipating that they will be excessively large trees at the end. So hopefully we're good here. The other concern I heard was about visibility. Our building is intended to be about 22 feet 7 inches, which is below the maximum allowed 50 foot right here. So I think whatever the signage modifications need to occur for visibility, that would be something that would be addressed at a later point in time. The dumpster, we would like to keep our dumpster. It's my understanding that we would need to have that as it's a separate parcel, but I would need to confirm with staff on that. We have landscaped around it, so that way it is less intrusive. We have added the 11 parking spots as you see here. I believe Andy was looking for us to add a few parking spots here. Right now in our agreement with the purchase and sale agreement, we are only able to do this. This is the maximum allowed of parking spots that we are able to do at this point in time.
You said that's part of your purchase agreement?
Yes, we are going to be adding those parking spots. And so we're looking at 11, which is actually a net gain of 3 over the existing center as it is. And then the Verizon itself, to advance Ms. Harris's comment, this is actually a new owner and new operator. They've done hundreds of these all across the country. They're a very well-established business. Last I heard, I think it was over 700. Hawkins Companies were a small family business, but we are a preferred vendor and developer for them. We have done, I believe, over 42 of these that are currently built and standing. We also have a lease with Verizon as well. So this is not something that they're going to move into and move out. We would also request that the no left turn lane sign also not be considered at this point in time. Part of the appeal of this project is really the access and circulation and its close proximity to the retail shopping center here and the other retail. And I believe that was all the questions, but if there's any more, I would love to address, or I can have Chris, or you can get Amy back up here.
Okay. Actually, I think, Amy, could you talk about the circulation and what was reviewed in your project review?
There's a picture of, it looks like circulation. That's just convenient. I actually haven't reviewed this specific exhibit, but when we looked at it as staff, the primary thing was that this main entrance was going to remain in place, and there's not going to be any changes to this. This turn here already exists. There's parking here already. The Granite Bay Community Plan does talk about breaking the parking up into units, so that's why I also supported the proposed design and circulation as it was breaking it up into smaller sections.
Okay. You know, with Dutch Brothers at that location, I can imagine that there are times when the drive stacks up. So.
Yes, yeah. I was there fairly recently, and you can kind of see Dutch Brothers here, and people will come in through other entrances into the shopping center and sit over here in this area to wait to turn in to keep this area clear and then eventually turn into Dutch Brothers.
Okay. So you're comfortable with the circulation as it is presently proposed?
Yes.
Okay. Other questions of the commission? If not, then any other comments from the public, Sue? Oh, you've already spoken, so sorry. In that case, we'll close the public comment period and bring it back to the commission for discussion or motion.
Mr. Chairman, very familiar with the center. It's close to home. The turn restriction that was discussed, I think, warrants a little consideration. Auburn Folsom is a major commute road. Early in the morning, this is packed from stoplight to stoplight, north to south. It's packed. Trying to make a left-hand turn out of there during commute hours has resulted in several accidents, and definitely interferes with the proper flow of traffic. If you can look and see the number of lanes that people would have to get across in order to make that turn. And typically traffic is stacked up past that point in the morning. And as I look back and see that, as we approved Dutch Brothers, we did not address that. It would be, I think, maybe one oversight we could clean up now.
Okay.
Jeff, where would people who want to make a left go if they didn't make it there?
They could go further south in the center and come out. I think it's Fuller Drive. That's a signaled intersection.
Okay, so they'd have to drive through the shopping center to get there.
Through the shopping center, yes, and then there's another exit that is not signaled, and then you could get out onto Fuller, which is a signaled intersection to get onto Auburn Folsom.
I agree with you, Jeff. I have an issue with that because I am really concerned. Auburn Folsom is a very busy road, and I was surprised that you could still do a left-hand turn out of there. So I don't know if Public Works is really taking a look at this to see, if there's another way to address this. But I would certainly support, that they need to review this for that left-hand turn lane.
And I don't know if it could be time of day specific as opposed to just plain no left turn, because there's certainly times of the day where it's a very easy thing to do. But during commute hours, it's a very precarious thing to do.
Okay.
I guess I would have a question, though, during commute hours, if there would be much business at the Verizon store. It would really add to the traffic that's already going to Dutch Brothers Coffee. This type of business, probably wouldn't generate a lot of traffic, in the early morning and late in the afternoon.
Okay. Yeah, no, and I mean, it gets almost down to the issue is not so much because of the Verizon store going in there, other than that's before us right now.
Our chance to get another slice at the pie.
But the question is from the staff to be able to take a look at if that is an issue during the commute time. So the store is probably not open during the morning commute, but it probably is open during the evening commute. Morning commute is when you have the Dutch Brothers issue. So, EJ, do you have any thoughts or recommendations on
Clayton
how to
and I will probably
this?
both jump on this one.
Yeah.
But the concern is, you have a lot of other businesses that use this center. I think everybody's acknowledged that there is a existing problem, and Commissioner Johnson brought up a good point that we're not necessarily sure that this new facility that you're taking into consideration is prompting
right
that condition that exists today, or is it exacerbating it?
Yeah, and I think there is potentially concern with respect to noticing the other businesses in that shopping center would not have been aware that that potential left turn could have been changed by the way this is currently set up. So if there was an interest in the commission in modifying that, I would suggest that perhaps we continue the items so that so that the businesses in that area may at least kind of have the opportunity to challenge it if they're so interested. Another potential avenue, if I might suggest, is to direct staff to look at that as a possibility going forward, but not condition this project on it.
I guess that's kind of where I would like to see it go, that it's really not related to the Verizon store, but this brings the issue up. And I'd really like to see the staff work with the traffic staff at that issue, because if it's an ongoing problem, it should be addressed. But I don't think that relates. I don't see the nexus with the Verizon store.
I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, but looking at the future, what we have is a 3,000 square foot retail building. And today we know it's a Verizon store. 5 years from now, we don't.
Okay.
And I don't know when another opportunity would arise to give us the chance to look at this.
Okay. Other discussion from the commission?
Seems to me.
Supporting the
Go ahead.
recommendation that to turn this back and recommend that the staff with Public Works Traffic take a look at this, because they can initiate this change on their own. They don't need us to push them along on that. But I just think a review is appropriate.
You broke up a little bit, Wayne, so you're recommending we delay the action on this to allow the staff to review this?
I'm not sure why I'm breaking up, but what I was suggesting is that we move this item forward, but that we add that staff review this to see what kind of, if there is an issue, and they can initiate a change on their own. They don't need to have us do that.
Okay, thank you. And then, Rick, you had?
I was going to say basically the same thing. I agree with what EJ was saying, that it's a problem for the county to look at that may or may not be really related with this building in particular, or probably not related to the building as it is planned right now. And in the future, if it comes up, then, that's a staff problem to engineering problem solved.
Okay. Then the one other item that came up was the visibility of the restaurant. And I understand design review occurs after this. And I would like to see that the Planning Commission makes a recommendation that the staff consider the visibility of the restaurant from the various locations and the landscaping that is proposed.
So Chairman, the design site review agreement is part of the action that we're asking you to take today, but like I said, you can defer that back to staff for us to administratively approve that with your recommendations for any changes.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, look for a motion.
Recommendation.
Oh, just a minute. Amy, did you have something to say?
Going to get us a motion on the.
Oh, we gotta get back.
Yeah. Okay, you're going to put the motion up on the board. Okay.
There we go.
All right, there we go.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion if you.
All right. Thank you, Jeff.
Make a motion that we find the project categorically exempt from environmental review pursuant to the provisions of Section 15303 of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines and Section 18.36.050C of the Placer County Environmental Review Ordinance. Class 3, new construction or conversion of small structures.
Second.
We have a first and second. Roll call, please.
I have a first from Mr. Moss, a second from Mr. Johnson, so a vote for Mr. Cannon, please.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Sevison?
Yes.
And Mr. Hauge?
Yes.
Thank you.
I further move that we approve the tentative parcel map supported by the findings and conditions contained in the staff report and has modified in the errata.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
I have a first from Mr. Moss, a second from Mr. Johnson. A vote for Mr. Cannon, please.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Moss.
Yes.
Mr. Nader.
Yes.
Mr. Sevison.
You're still muted, Larry.
You're smiling.
I know. I saw him say yes, but
True?
there you go.
Yes.
Would further move that we approve the conditional.
Just a minute. Oh, one more.
Well, one more, I'm sorry.
And Mr. Hauge.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chairman. Would further move that we approve the conditional use permit supported by the findings and conditions contained in the staff report and as modified in the errata.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
First from Mr. Moss, a second from Mr. Johnson, and a vote for Mr. Cannon, please.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Moss.
Yes.
Mr. Nader.
Yes.
Mr. Sevison.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Mr. Hauge.
Yes.
Thank you.
Would further move that we approve the site design review agreement supported by the findings and conditions contained in the staff report as modified in the errata, with additional instructions that I guess that work be done to give consideration to visibility of existing structures there as landscaping is planned and planted.
And anything on the garbage area?
No.
Did you second?
What about
Rick
what
seconded.
about the left hand?
I think the left hand can be a separate direction maybe after all these motions because it's separate from the project. So
Okay.
I think that might be appropriate. So one more motion after we take care of these. So we have a first and a second on this motion as amended. Roll call, please.
I have a first from Mr. Moss, a second from Mr. Johnson. A vote for Mr. Cannon, please.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Moss.
Yes.
Mr. Nader.
Yes.
Mr. Sevison.
I see you say yes, but it's still muted, Larry. There, you're off. Okay. Nope, you put it back on again. Still muted, Larry.
Nod your head.
I don't think that works. I already saw him say yes. There you go. You should be good.
Yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Hauge.
Sorry.
Yes. All right. Is that it for the recommendations, Amy? Okay,
So then I would further move that we direct staff to work with the applicant and property owners to investigate, the appropriateness of limiting the left turn potential, at least during commute hours, out of that one particular driveway by the Dutch brothers.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
I believe I have a first from Mr. Moss and a second was Mr. Nader.
Correct.
And a vote from Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Moss.
Yes.
Mr. Nader.
Yes.
Mr. Sevison.
That darn mute button. You're still muted, Larry. There you go. Ooh. There.
Now?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Hauge?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. The decision of the Planning Commission may be appealed by anyone who appeared at today's hearing and provided comment, or anyone that submitted written comments on the item. An appeal must be filed within 10 days of today's date and shall be accompanied by a filing fee of $619. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Sue, Pam actually seconded that one.
Oh.
What?
Sam seconded?
Yes, I did. That's correct.
Oh, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, everyone who's been, wow, everybody's leaving us. All right, the next timed item is the Granite Bay Veterinary Clinic Conditional Use Permit Modification. Members of the public may now raise their hands, press star 9 if you are calling in, to begin queuing in for public comment on this item, which will not begin until the item presentation is complete. Delaney Farnham, Associate Planner, will be presenting the item. Thank you for staying, Delaney.
All right, good morning, if it's still morning. Chairman, members of the Commission, I'm Delaney Farnham with Planning Services. Today before you, we have a conditional use permit modification for the Granite Bay Veterinary Clinic. A little background, this project is located at 6500 Douglas Boulevard. It's at the northwest corner of Arabian Circle and Douglas Boulevard. It's located in between Barton Road and Auburn Folsom Road along the Douglas Boulevard corridor in Granite Bay. So the approximately 2.4 acre parcel is relatively square in shape. All the development is concentrated on the northern portion of the parcel. Access to the Granite Bay Vet Clinic is from Arabian Circle via a one-way circular driveway. The site is developed with an existing 3,711 square foot structure, which is comprised of a 2,663 square foot vet clinic on the first story. The second story of the structure is a 1,048 square foot residential unit. There is existing 20 paved parking spaces with one space designated for ADA. There is landscaping along the Douglas Boulevard frontage and also along the driveway island at the entrance and around the trash enclosure at the north side of the building. Trees and natural vegetation border the building on the south side, and the southern half of the parcel is undeveloped as a kind of open field. The site is served by San Juan Water District, and there's an existing septic system for wastewater and sewage disposal. But just to give you an idea of current conditions, this is a view coming from Arabian Circle. This is the eastern elevation as it currently sits. And this is a view from the northern elevation, which would be along Douglas Boulevard. So some background. This Granite Bay Vet Clinic was originally approved as a conditional use permit, CUP 161, in February of 1977. Over the years, it has changed hands in ownership. And with the current owners, I believe they've been in ownership since 2018. They're looking to do some upgrades and renovations to the 1970s building. So their current operations, they provide service to small and exotic animals. Their hours of operation are 8 to 5, 8 to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday. They have approximately 15 staff that serve up to 50 clients per day. So the applicants are requesting a conditional use permit modification to allow for a 913 square foot single-story addition to the existing 2,663 square foot vet clinic, which would bring a total floor area of 3,578 square feet. The proposed addition will include expanded reception area, an exam room, office, and storage area. No changes are proposed to the operations with this expansion. The clinic will continue to operate with the same number of clients and staff and hours of operation. Additionally, the applicant proposes to renovate both the interior of the clinic to construct ADA compliant restrooms, include new flooring, walls, and ceiling finishes. Additionally, they'll be updating the exterior with new siding, paint, and signage. So for the exterior renovations, the proposed exterior will incorporate site design and architectural features consistent with the design elements outlined in the Granite Bay Community Plan. The preferred design elements and goals for Douglas Boulevard corridor include a craftsman-style village, which includes low-pitch roof lines, overhanging eaves, use of mix of quality materials such as wood, brick, and stone, exposed rafters, beams, braces and decorative brackets, and articulation of the building fronts and roof lines. So this would be their proposed elevation plan. On the top, you see the east elevation, which would be the front of the building, which is from Arabian Circle. The addition would be this section here, and it would be including signage. This would be the elevation facing Douglas Boulevard, which is along the north. Just to give you a sense, the materials for siding, a mix of both vertical and horizontal siding, a shingle siding. This gives you a good representation of the design that they're going for. We see the craftsman style with the stone veneer on the front, columns, the pitched roof lines, and the molding around the building. So for the 913 square foot expansion, the vet clinic is required to do some safety improvements at the existing Douglas Boulevard and Arabian Circle encroachment. The improvements include construction of the west side of the encroachment to a modified Placer County Standard Plate 116 major. This is grading only with no paving required. The blue on the slide here indicates the approximate area to be graded, and it would improve the driver line of sight. So grading would occur here, and then this area indicates kind of the bank that we cut back or sloped. So we have grading to improve the driver line of sight entering and exiting Arabian Circle. So the Development Review Committee recommends that the Planning Commission find this project categorically exempt from environmental review and approve the conditional use permit modification to allow construction of a 913 square foot addition to the existing Granite Bay Veterinary Clinic, supported by findings and revised recommended conditions of approval found in the staff report.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Are there questions of the commission of the staff? All right. At this point in time, do we have the applicant wanting to make a presentation?
They should be online.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, well, my name is Sarah Bradley. Oh, I'm not sure I have my video on, but I am the owner of Granite Bay Veterinary Clinic. And I just, wanted to thank you for hearing us today and tell you a little bit about ourselves and about the project. When we purchased the clinic, it was actually in 2017. We knew that remodeling was something that we wanted to do as soon as possible, just especially the clinic was built in the 70s and had not really been touched since then. So just, aesthetics and coming up to becoming ADA compliant. So since that time, we have been, diligently saving to move towards this remodel. We had planned on starting the remodel last year, sort of at the beginning of the year, but then unfortunately the pandemic hit. And then at that point, everything was very scary for small business owners, and we just had to put our plans on hold because I had to protect the staff and just focus on them as a priority. But now we're ready to move forward with the remodel. We are, a little bit disheartened by the current road improvement condition, only because the cost is obviously very significant, and that we don't feel that the scope of our project warrants the current road improvement condition. We're really excited for this project, really excited to have saved up and to be able to remodel and make a better clinic for our community. I'm really proud to be a part of this community and this neighborhood, and especially in the veterinary community. There's not a lot of independently owned clinics anymore. A lot are owned by corporations. And so, we're just hoping to move forward with this as a small business owner and as an independent veterinary practice owner. And we would just ask that, in order for private practices like myself to be able to continue and improve, we just ask for your help. And we would ask that, the Planning Commission to remove this road condition, please.
All right. Are there questions of the applicant from the commission?
Yes. Have you gotten an estimate of what that cost is? Because as I understand, there's no paving related to it. It's just a matter of removing dirt so there's more visibility at that intersection.
For that, I guess I would defer to our general contractor, Steve. I think he's on the call too.
Okay. Other questions of the commission, of the applicant? All right. At this point in time, then, let's open this for public comment. I don't see anyone in the audience for public comment. Is there anyone online, Sue? No. All right. Since we have no public comment, I'll close the public comment period. Could you talk a bit about the grading and the reason for that?
Yeah, I'll speak to that. And then if we have Michelle Lewis with engineering and surveying, I believe she's on the Zoom call as well, I'll have her kind of chime in. But just real briefly, originally when we looked at this as a conditional use permit modification, they're expanding the footprint of the building. I know the operators believe the operations are going to remain the same, so not an expansion of their use, but expansion of the building. We still saw the need for a safety improvement at this encroachment. I will say staff has negotiated down, so we did start at a full improvement of both sides of the encroachment with paving. We then reduced it down to just the west side with paving, and they're really great at negotiating. We got it down just to grading to improve driver sight lines. So staff has felt they've done their best to come down on that condition. It's really an engineering and surveying department condition, so I'll let them speak to that if Michelle Lewis is on the line.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we believe that that this is the appropriate improvement for the level of traffic increase that you'll see at this intersection. It just simply gets a line of sight so that cars on Douglas will more easily be able to see cars queuing up to enter onto Douglas, and with the slight increase in traffic caused by the expansion, that this is an appropriate improvement.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, quick question if I could. Not long ago, the commission approved a project, I think, just right across Arabian Circle.
Correct.
That's correct.
Were similar conditions for road improvements placed on their project for the other side of Arabian Circle?
Their project actually had the full encroachment improvement. They were required to improve both sides of that encroachment to the 116 county standard and do the paving as well. So it's a much more involved in that improvement.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other questions of the commission? All right. If not, at this point in time, public comment period is closed. Let's bring it back for a commission discussion. Any discussion? And if not, any motion?
It would appear to me that the county's been pretty flexible about this intersection improvements, that they've backed off a couple of items that could have been pretty expensive. I certainly feel for adding a burden to small business, particularly during this time, but it sounds like the county has kind of gone down to the minimum of what they think needs to be done at that intersection to make sure that into the future this is going to be a safe area for people to access. So I guess I'm still okay with the staff's recommendation on it.
Okay. You going to make a motion, Wayne? Oh, there's some people.
You know, I can't see anything.
Wayne, just a minute. I think we have a couple of people who want to speak.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to reopen up the public comment period because we have persons now. So open that up and let's see. Okay, contractors online. Mr. Gibson, you're online.
Yes, Yes, hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hi, I am Sarah's husband. I've been working closely with her and our contractor, Steve, on the project. My background, I'm an accountant, so I've been handling a lot of the budgetary constraints with this project. And I've been negotiating with Delaney and her team on the road improvement condition in specifically. We did get, I did hear Planning Commission ask if we did get a quote for the cost. The cost came back at $110,000, which is a significant hit. It's not part of our budget. You know, we understand that this is a condition that's already been applied to the Katuna project, which was recently approved. You know, we're asking, you know, and their project's much more significant than ours. We're merely adding 900 square feet to an existing veterinary clinic. With that, you know, we are asking, you know, the commission to take a recommendation to remove that condition from our project, or if you feel that this is a condition that's necessary, allow us to defer the putting in that condition, meeting that condition, until, you know, the Katuna project starts, or, you know, give us, if it doesn't start within, you know, 1 to 2 years, then make us come back and do that condition. That will give us time to save up and properly budget for this unexpected expense.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And we have someone else on, you said?
I see a phone number, but I don't know who it is, so I'll allow him to talk.
We have somebody on
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to get in. This is Steve with GP Development. I'm not sure if you had any questions for me, but Chris is correct. We engaged a civil engineer to drop a quick scope of work for the tapered lane required for that specification standard we were provided. As you know, it's already costly, a little over $100,000. It's a little more than grading, as you probably know. There's going to be landscaping, there's current signage to protect and retaining to keep that hill up, which I'm not sure if you could see in the pictures, but the current slope from Douglas up to their lot's almost at a 1-to-1, so it's pretty steep, and we have to maintain that that hill. But that was just briefly for me, or if you guys had questions as far as the construction portion of it.
Okay. All right. What's that? Oh. Okay. And then Sarah, if you want to speak again, we'll. There you go. You should be on. Oop. Off. Sarah, you can unmute yourself and.
Oh, sorry. I was just trying to raise my hand to let you know that other people were trying to call in, but everyone's gotten on. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I think with that, then close the public comment period again and bring it back to the commission for discussion.
Mr. Chairman?
Well, I'd like to know how commissioners feel about taking their suggestion and giving a delay on the completion of this, giving them some time to financially prepare for it, with a time certain that it needs to be completed, and it can be tied somewhat to the adjacent project. I mean, how does the rest of the commission feel about that?
That's what I was going to get at. Is I think that if they are allowed to delay and do this in conjunction with the neighboring project, one, there's potential cost savings if they share traffic control expenses and things like that, and maybe even have the same contractor do the work while equipment's on site. There's potential savings there. It's also less inconvenience to the people on Arabia Circle. There's not 2 times that there's construction going on at the end of their driveway. So I think that makes sense, you know, both logistically and financially for the applicant to be allowed to delay that.
Okay. Other comments from the commission? I mean, you know what is recommended, but I would like to see that there's a time certain that it's completed rather than leaving it open. But I do understand the thought process of coordinating that. So, Clayton, you definitely
Currently, the way the project is set up, it's on condition 14, which is on page 18 of the staff report. And that requires a grading permit be obtained prior to building permit approval. And there is a note in there that says, unless otherwise approved by the Placer County Engineering and Surveying Division. So the way it is set up right now, it appears to be that if that improvement has already occurred due to the Katuna project prior to building permit approval, then this project wouldn't be tasked with it. But certainly if there's an interest in modifying it, this would be the condition that we would modify.
Well, I'd like to modify it. I think Jeff made some good comments as well as to why we should do this. I think there could be some real cost savings for the applicant when it's done jointly. But I agree with Anders that maybe we should do it time certain. I think that suggestion was 2 years. So I'm good with that if the rest of the commission is good with it.
Right. Delaney, do you have any idea on the timing of the project next door and how they're coming with their plans or anything?
Yeah, so the Katunas got approved at the Board of Supervisors in November. So at this point, their next step is to submit improvement plans. The last I spoke to them about a month ago is that they were pleased to have their approval and get the project started. So I can reach back out to them and help coordinate efforts for joint working on the improvement plans. I don't know if Michelle Lewis has any comments on how engineering and surveying can ensure that the condition, works well with the Katuna project.
Michelle did raise her hand.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can hear you, Michelle.
Okay, yeah, I just, if the improvement is done with part of the Katuna project, I think that there should be an agreement entered into that this project pays their fair share of it, rather than Katuna having to construct the whole thing. I also wanted to mention that with the cost estimate, and we would need to review that. We did review one of their original cost estimates, which was substantially higher, but it was for a much larger improvement than when we were requesting. And so we didn't, we explained that we're not having a full dedicated right turn lane. It's just a little bit of a taper. So, and we would consider a design exception request if there was a retaining wall required, because we wouldn't want that retaining wall to be in our county right-of-way of Douglas Boulevard anyway. And as Clayton pointed out, the condition does state that, or as approved by ESD. So, but it appeared to us that improvement would be able to be graded back without the requirement for a retaining wall. So I think some of the costs in that estimate could be reduced or eliminated completely.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. You have a comment?
Yeah, so based on what I hear from staff, the concern is just that if Katuna moves forward, there's no guarantee that this project would ever either complete the improvement or do their fair share. So I think Clayton's working on some language now where either prior to building permit, you satisfy that condition as written or enter into an agreement for a fair share, at the time the Katunas do that prior to the.
Add one more thing, that if the Katuna doesn't go forward within 2 years, this is completed. So it's kind of do it now, do it with Katunas, and if Katuna doesn't go forward, then you have to have it done in 2 years.
Or have an agreement.
Okay.
Right? So if there's an agreement in place, then that would defer it. All right. As long as they complied with that agreement. That makes sense?
It does. So
it will make sense when
Clayton
comes up with some language here.
Thank you, Clayton.
Yeah, once that building permit's issued, then, this project moves forward.
Right.
With or without that improvement. So if there's an agreement in place, or if the improvement is already constructed, either of those two would satisfy it.
Okay, good.
Okay, so the suggested addition would be on condition 14. And the modification would occur after the first sentence. And it would be in addition to it. So the first sentence currently starts prior to building permit approval. And it goes on to say, obtain a grading permit to complete the grading required for construction improvement of the west side of the existing private road, Arabian Circle, encroachment onto Douglas Boulevard to a modified Placer County Standard Plate 116 major, unless otherwise approved by the Placer County Engineering and Surveying Division and or the Department of Public Works. And then at the end of that, we would remove the period and include a comma and include the following language. And upon entering into a private agreement with the entity constructing the improvement for fair share payment of that improvement.
Okay. Thank you.
So that would mean if that agreement is in place, then the county could sign off on it as long as that occurs prior to building permit approval.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
Quick question, if I could, please. Is there a big difference if rather than prior to issuance of building permit, it was prior to certificate of occupancy? Give them a little more time to negotiate and deal with this?
You can certainly do that. The certificate of occupancy would just be for the addition portion, I guess.
They're already in the other part.
Currently, it's currently occupied for the remaining part. Yeah. So, and of course, anytime you kind of move down that road, it just enforcement gets to be a little more difficult, but that theoretically is a possibility.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion on the commission? If not, accept the motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'm glad. If you can hear me okay.
Yep.
Can you? Okay. I would move that the project be categorically exempt from the environmental review pursuant to provisions of Section 15303E of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines and Section 18.36.050E of the Placer County Environmental Review Ordinance, Class 3 new construction or conversion of small structures because the proposed modification will add 913 square feet to an existing facility.
We have a
Is
second.
that good?
Did I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a first and a second. Roll call.
I have a first from Mr. Nader, a second from Mr. Cannon. So a vote for Mr. Cannon, please.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Moss.
Yes.
Mr. Nader.
Yes.
Mr. Sevison.
You're on mute again, Larry.
Yes.
Okay.
And Mr. Hauge.
Yes.
Thank you.
I would further move that we approve the conditional use permit modification PLN 20-00223 to allow construction of a 913 square foot single story addition to the veterinary clinic supported by the findings and the modification of condition 14. Do I need to kind of lay out what that additional change is in 14? Or do I say as recommended by council?
I think you can say as recommended by council previously.
Okay.
I would also request that your motion also include compliance with the other existing conditions of approval.
So moved.
A second?
We have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
I have a first from Mr. Nader, a second from Mr. Moss. So a vote from Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Moss.
Yes.
Mr. Nader.
Yes.
Mr. Sevison.
Yes.
Mr. Hauge.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, I think that's it for the motions. Just a little side note, my father was a veterinarian and I helped him get a use permit in about 1979, so this sounds very familiar. Let's see, the decision of the Planning Commission may be appealed by anyone who appeared at today's hearing and provided comment, or anyone that submitted written comments on this item. An appeal must be filed within 10 days of today's date and shall be accompanied by a filing fee of $619. The next timed item is the Ingram Ridgewood Highlands Estate Subdivision Number 2, Lot 62, Subdivision Map Modification and Variance. Members of the public may now raise their hands or press star 9 if you're calling in to begin queuing in for the public comment on this item, which will not begin until the item presentation is complete. Janie Blavin, Associate Planner, will be presenting this item, and it looks like, Janie, you're online today.
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Janie Balvin with the Planning Division in Tahoe City. I'm here to present the Ingram Subdivision Map Modification and Variance. And I'm ready for slide number 60. Thank you. The project is located at 4510 Wild Cherry Lane in the Cedar Flat neighborhood of Lake Tahoe's North Shore. It is zoned residential. Next slide. It is lot 62 of the Ridgewood Highlands number 2 subdivision. As you can see on the subdivision map here, there is a 20-foot setback adjacent to Wild Cherry Lane, and this line coincides with the zoning setback of 20 feet from the front property line adjacent to Wild Cherry Lane. Next slide, please. Lot 62 is currently developed with a 2-story single-family dwelling. Portions of the front of this existing structure were constructed in the front setback without the benefit of a map modification or variance. And this is a view of the Ingram residence from Wild Cherry Lane. Next slide. The owner would like to expand the living area of the home as well as construct a deck off the main bedroom. The existing location of the structure and the current floor plan are driving the location of the proposed improvements, for which the applicant is requesting approval of the subdivision map modification and variance. Next slide. These improvements are designed to align architecturally with the existing residence without projecting further into the setback than the existing encroachments. Staff reviewed the request and find it to be in keeping with the intent of the original subdivision and compatible with the neighborhood. Next slide. I'd like to make 2 notes before moving on to the recommendation. The plans you received as attachments to the staff report contain a typo in the title block with regard to the property address and APN, which is corrected for the record now. Also, we received several comments from neighboring property owners in support of the project. So staff recommends the Planning Commission take the following actions subject to the findings and conditions of approval in the staff report. Find the project is categorically exempt from review under CEQA pursuant to provisions of section 15305 of the CEQA guidelines and section 18.36.070 of the Placer County Environmental Review Ordinance, Class 5, minor alterations and land use limitations. Next slide. Approve the subdivision modification in the Ridgewood Highlands number 2 to allow for a 10-foot 4-inch front setback where there is a required 20-foot map setback in order to construct a second-story deck off the main bedroom and close an existing second-story deck to convert to living area and add a small pop-out of living area on the first and second stories in conjunction with approval of the variance for a 10-foot 4-inch front setback where there's a required 20-foot zoning setback. And with that, I can answer any questions you might have. The applicant, Abby Edwards, is, I think, on the line as well if you have questions.
All right. Are there questions of the staff? Seeing none, does the applicant have any statements?
Hi, this is Jeff Ingram. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Hey, I just wanted to say thanks to Jamie for working with Abby, my permit consultant. Appreciate the time with staff. And I've had the house for 17 years. I'm moving into retirement, and I was looking forward to just doing some upgrades to the house and spending some more time in the neighborhood.
Well, thank you. Okay.
Oh, yes, excuse me. I have one additional question for, I don't know if it's Janie or whether it's the commission. The variance is good for 2 years, and since the project's going to require us to do civil work, which can only start in May of any particular calendar year, and we want to take advantage of the whole summer season and get the house buttoned back up before snow should come. And with all the COVID issues, I didn't know if there was a way to extend the variance 1 year just in case things come up with COVID. I can't start this May. If this gets approved, then we'll move into drawings and with permits. So I was just trying to preserve my options, and I don't know if that's allowable or not. So I'm just making that request.
All right, let's ask staff.
Yeah, so it's a 2-year approval for CUPs, and then they have the opportunity to apply for an extension of time. I think three 2-year extensions.
Okay. So did you hear that if you run into problems, you can receive an extension to your CUP, so you'd have to come in and make that request?
Okay, I can live with that. That's fine. Thanks very much.
All right, good. All right, are there any questions of the applicant? Seeing none, let's close. Oh, we have to open it up to the public now. Are there any comments from the public? And we have no comments from the public, and our audience here is totally vacant. So we will close the public comment period, and at this point in time, bring it back for the discussion of the commission and a motion.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no discussion, I will make a motion.
Could you go back one slide? On the motion, we want the first slide. Thank you, EJ. All right,
Mr. Chairman, I would recommend the Planning Commission find the project is categorically exempt from review under CEQA pursuant to provisions of Section 15305 of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines and Section 18.36.070 of the Placer County Environmental Review Ordinance, Class 5, minor alterations in land use and limitations.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Right.
You got two.
Yep, we do. So we have a motion and a second. I think Sam came in first.
I did.
I have a first from Mr. Moss, a second from Mr. Cannon, so a vote for Mr. Cannon, please.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Sevison?
You're muted, Larry.
Yes.
Mr. Hauge?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good.
One
We
more
go to
slide, please.
Yeah. Advance to slide 1. There we go. Got it. Thank you, Jeremy.
Further move, we approve the subdivision map modification in the Ridgewood Highlands Number 2, Lot 62, to allow for a 10-foot, 4-inch front setback where there is a required 20-foot map setback, Wild Cherry Lane, in order to construct a second-story deck off the main bedroom, enclose an existing second-story deck to convert to living area, and add a small pop-out of living area on the first and second stories.
And staff's recommendations not listed on here would also be subject to the findings contained in the staff report and the conditions of approval.
Subject to the findings in the staff report and the conditions of approval.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
I have a first from Mr. Moss, a second from Mr. Cannon, so a vote for Mr. Cannon, please.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Sevison?
Yes.
Mr. Hauge?
Yes.
Thank you.
Would further move we approve the variance for a 10-foot, 4-inch front setback where there is a required 20-foot zoning setback for Wild Cherry Lane.
Second.
Staff's recommendation would also be that that is subject to the findings in the staff report and the conditions of approval.
Subject to the findings in the staff report and the conditions of approval.
Second.
Again, okay. We have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
First from Mr. Moss, a second from Mr. Cannon. A vote for Mr. Cannon, please.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Moss.
Yes.
Mr. Nader.
Yes.
Mr. Sevison.
Yes.
And Mr. Hauge.
Yes.
Thank you.
The decision of the Planning Commission may be appealed by anyone who appeared at today's hearing and provided comment, or anyone that submitted written comments on the item. An appeal must be filed within 10 days of today's date and shall be accompanied by a filing fee of $619. With that, I think that concludes our program. I want to thank Jeff. It's been a pleasure working with you. I think all the commissioners feel that way. And wish everyone a great holiday period, and we'll see you next year. The meeting is adjourned.